Hi, everybody. I'm Colleen. This is take maybe 1000 on trying to make this video. Okay. Um, First of all, I wanted to thank anybody who's actually watching this, especially all the other students in the class. I want to thank you guys for all your discussion posts, all your comments, all your feedback to me. I really enjoyed the class and I really enjoyed the readings, but I did find them challenging at times. So I really relied on your comments and your insights to really help me understand the course. So thank you very much. Um, okay, so I want to give just a little bit of a warning. At first, my topic is about the singing courtesan. So this is a topic for mature audiences. So I wanted to let you know that I will be talking about the courtesan, about the social norms around sex, around singing, around gender that she kind of transgressed. Um, if I could find a situation in which this would be applicable and students were open to learning about this, I think one of the ways that I would present the topic to my students is to make a connection with a modern job that actually doesn't involve sex. Um, but I think if they can make this to the connection to this modern job, they would start to see the courtesan as more than just a high class prostitute, that she really did have a function in society. It really did offer one path for women to have some freedom and to have some financial stability, if even more than married women and or even single women had at the time. So I think I would start with um, a little game. I would say, can you guess? I'm going to describe a job to you. Can you guess this job? And I would say, what kind of job would it be if they needed to be, if it was very important that they were seen in the most fashionable clothes, in the most fashionable places, with the most fashionable people? What kind of job would it be if they sought partners to sponsor them, who would give them money and gifts and clothing and houses to be associated with these sponsors? And um, and if these sponsors were associated with this person, the sponsor's social value would increase. Um, this person could be wildly popular and people would be obsessed with them, with their clothes and who they were spending time with them. But even though they were wildly popular with the common everyday person, they weren't really respected by authority. They're not really being invited to an audience with the Dalai Lama or the Pope. They're not being invited to the White House for dinner, at least not through the front door. If you were wildly popular in this job, you could have great wealth. However, you could lose your wealth if your partner got tired of you or broke your contract, and you could lose your popularity and wealth overnight. So I'd ask them, what do you think this job is? And hopefully they would say a social media influencer. And then I would say, yes, but I have more to tell you. So I would say, I see why you said that, but that's not the job I was thinking about. And so I would add, what kind of job would it be if you had a beautiful voice and you used your voice to get sponsors? And then I would say, and what would it be if you promised your sponsors not only to be seen with you, but that you also promised them sexual favors? What job would it be then? And then, of course, the answer would be the singing courtesan. So, um, let's see. The reason why I chose this topic was because all summer long I've been fascinated by the absolute deep bias that society has had against the female singer and even against the female voice. I really couldn't understand, how did the female voice become so dangerous? And how did it become so sexual, just so erotic? I feel like I understand a little bit of that in today's culture, that the human voice is sexual, the female voice can be sexual, but not like it was when it was basically just outlawed by the church, when they were singing courtesans. So I really just wanted to understand what was going on in society. What did society believe about the human voice, that it could be defined as something so sexual and so dangerous. So, in my research, I found a great paper by Bonnie Gordon that talked about the singing courtesan and her sexual capital, her cultural capital. And so she really explained to me how the voice came to be defined as dangerous, how it came to be defined as sexual. Kind of like you can say alcohol will reduce your ability to be reasonable, okay? Just the way in our textbook, the writer said the church was against female singers. But in our textbook, it doesn't really say why. And I wanted to know, just the way you would know, like, how alcohol affects your body. How does it cause you to become unreasonable? I wanted to know, how is the female voice dangerous? What is it about the female voice that makes it dangerous? What is it about it that makes it sexual? So I found out some unbelievable things in this paper by Bonnie Gordon that had to do with deep-seated beliefs that society had throughout the centuries, that had to do with sex, that had to do with the voice, that had to do with good health, all of that leading to these social norms against the female singer. So let's see, I'll tell you just a couple of them because I thought they were so interesting. One reason why the female voice was thought to be so dangerous is it was literally thought to have magical powers that men could absolutely not resist, and they would lose all reason and do irrational things, and it was a big threat to society. This also had to do with what they thought about good health. Ancient Egyptians, ancient Romans felt like part of being in good health was to maintain an appropriate body temperature, and that singing raised your body temperature in both the listener and the performer. And so that made it dangerous because it put you at risk for illness. So you were at risk for losing your reason. You were at risk for losing your health. Another reason why singing was so dangerous was because it could compromise your chastity, a woman's chastity. So this belief was more in the 19th century or the 18th century too, that a woman's chastity was fragile and could be corrupted by anything done in the extreme or anything done in the excess. So, or anything that required excellence. So like reading or writing or wearing luxurious clothes, or eating spicy foods. Anything done in extreme would compromise the female chastity because it was considered to be so fragile. And singing, of course, required great skill. You had to be knowledgeable in reading and in writing, and required great skill over the body. So they felt like that this put their chastity at risk. And the weirdest thing, though, were the ones that had to do with why they thought the voice was so erotic, why they thought the voice was so sexual. And a lot of this had to do is they really connected the female voice literally with sex. So not just when the female was singing a text about sex, but the craft of singing was so much like sex. So this had to do with like vocal mechanics, that when you sing, you use the mouth, the tongue, the lips, and the throat, and they felt like all of that you used when you had sex. So there was this parallel between singing and sex, this parallel between the mouth, and this parallel between the womb. There was also this one guy who wrote that the opening and closing of the glottis when you sing is like the opening and closing or the motions that the female makes during orgasm. And so, of course, that's dangerous to do out in public in front of people. So I thought that these were kind of like myths, and I thought these ideas and these beliefs were kind of out there, but it really helped me personally understand, okay, this is what society believed, if this is what they thought about singing, about sex, about the body, about the power of the female voice. Well, okay, well, that's why it was so threatening. That's why it was so dangerous. And so I pursued that in my paper. And then I also talked about that in the PowerPoint that I have attached. The one other thing that I did in my paper was to look at how Verdi treated the most famous courtesan, perhaps, Violetta, in the opera La Traviata. And what I said in my paper is that he mirrored the courtesan's ability to transgress social norms. He did the same thing with how he, one, transgressed social norms, but also transgressed the musical conventions of 18th century opera to create a 19th century opera that was new and different. So I talked about things like, the plot, for one, that he chose, unlike an 18th century opera that would be about myths or heroes or kings or nobles, this opera was about a common person. It was not only about a common person, but a fallen woman. I also talked about how he changed the musical convention. In 18th century opera, there was a rigid distinction between recitative and the aria. The instrumentation changed, their point of their use in the opera changed, and their musical sound was very sharp and distinct. And you can tell when one ended, and you can tell when one began. But Verdi did away with that convention, and he was a little more through composed. And so, like at the beginning of La Traviata, Violetta's on stage for 12 minutes, and she sings 3 different arias. And there's not a big distinction between recitative and aria. There are arias, and then there are moments where the action continues, but they're of great melodic interest, and it shows a lot of emotion and really creates a strong dramatic effect because the music doesn't stop and then start and stop and then start. Another thing that he did was while the singers were not in the aria and they were doing something more like the recitative, the orchestra would actually have the interesting melody part. So not just chords accompanying them, they would actually have melodic interest. And this again heightened the drama of the opera. And so you can see just the way the courtesan transgressed the social norms. So to bring about some freedom of expression and some financial stability for her, you see Verdi doing the same thing, transgressing these social norms to create something new in which he had more freedom and he had greater human expression. So that was my paper and my PowerPoint presentation. So thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. I look forward to seeing all of your work. Thank you. Bye-bye.